Experts confirm the U.S. is dealing with an out-of-control STI epidemic. The U.S. is dealing with an out-of-control epidemic of sexually transmitted infections, according to the National Coalition of STD Directors. The warning comes after the release of an annual data report on STIs by the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. The exacerbation of public health officials can be felt in the very first sentence on the online announcement. Yet again, the CDC website reads, more than 2.5 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis were reported in the United States. The most common STI in the U.S. in 2022 was chlamydia, which has remained in the top spot for years now. Nevertheless, it's the recent rise in syphilis that is concerning health officials most. According to CDC data, syphilis cases of all stages have increased by 80% in the past 5 years, they said. While most think of adults contracting STI, syphilis threatens the lives of babies too. When a child contracts syphilis from the mother during pregnancy or birth, it's known as congenital syphilis. In 2022, more than 3,700 of these cases were officially reported in the U.S. That's a 937% increase in a single decade. The good news is that syphilis is curable with the right antibiotics. The bad news is that until the infection is diagnosed and treated, it can cause irreversible damage to the body. In babies, syphilis is particularly dangerous, sometimes causing developmental delays, seizures, or even death. In adults, syphilis is spread via vaginal and anal or oral sex, and it tends to progress in stages. The primary stage usually involves sores around the mouth or genitals, while the secondary stage can trigger rashes on the body and flu-like symptoms, including fever, headache, sore throat, and fatigue. These first two stages are when the infection is most contagious. Rarely does this disease progress to the third stage, which can impact the organs and prove fatal. The fact that early stages of syphilis are increasing by roughly 10% a year is highly concerning and threatens the health of babies nationwide. In just a single year, congenital syphilis cases have increased by 31% in the U.S. Black or African American children were disproportionately affected. While nearly every single state reported a case of congenital syphilis in 2022, the state of Texas, California, Arizona, Florida, and Louisiana represented 57% of all reports. Tragically, writes Laura Backman, the CDC director for STD prevention, these infections resulted in 282 stillbirths and infant deaths in 2022. Such dire outcomes are hardly inevitable. Timely syphilis testing and treatment during pregnancy could have prevented 88% of these cases, expert says. So why isn't that happening? The STI field has reached a tipping point, Backman says. We have long known that these infections are common, but we have not faced such severe effects of this in decades. Recent public health emergencies diverted program resources and threatened the health of those already disproportionately affected by STIs. We must move now to pick up the pieces, she said. Officials at the CDC are calling for swift innovation and collaboration from all public health experts who play a role in STI prevention. Their voices are already being joined by numerous health associations, including the National Association of County and City Health Officials, the American Sexual Health Association, the American Academy of Family Physicians, and the National Coalition of STD Directors. The CDC latest STI data shows that our nation is facing a rapidly deteriorating public health crisis with real lives at stake, reads their statement. STIs, especially syphilis, will continue to spiral out of control until the administration and Congress provide communities with the funding they need to provide the most basic screening, treatment, and prevention services. While President Biden has put together a multi-agency plan to address America's rising STI cases, funding for the endeavor remains uncertain. Last year, NCS DDC Director David Harvey warned that if President Biden continues to cut health funding overall, his gesture towards STI prevention will inevitably fail. The Biden administration deserves praise for putting the spotlight on the most severe consequence of the nation's STI epidemic, congenital syphilis, reads their statement, but we know all too well that federal leadership will prove hollow if communities do not have the funding they need to get the job done. This is on Science Alert by Carly Casella. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.